Hello, everyone. This is, let's see, the May 9th edition of Learn with Jason. We've got Nader Dabit here from the AWS team. Thanks for joining us, Nader.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So today, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be building?
Yes, we're gonna be doing a couple of things really. The first thing I was thinking that we could probably try out is using a uh, a GraphQL API and kind of like doing the whole Gatsby source GraphQL plugin thing, where we can set kind of like some data that's fetched when we deploy our Gatsby site,
Cool.
and we can kind of pull that data from an Amplify backend, which is going to be GraphQL without sync. And I'm thinking we can create like a Game of Thrones API to pull like characters with their images and stuff like that. I was checking out the HBO Game of Thrones site yesterday, and it was pretty easy to pull like all of the data off of there. So like pulling out like a few images, a few descriptions and stuff. So I was
Cool.
thinking to do that, and then like maybe down the road, if we have time, we can add some authentication and maybe even deploy our site to a live URL so we could like share it.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea. So how would we get started?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I guess the first thing we would do, you click that Get Started button. It would kind of walk you through what you need to do. So let's start there, I guess.
So I think I already have an AWS account. So let me try doing actually, I think I may. Let's just do this the way that it says to. So I'm gonna do Yarn Global. So Yarn Global add AWS Amplify CLI.
That's right. Yeah. So go ahead and click. Yeah, go ahead and install the CLI. I
Okay.
think you already had it installed, but I think the new version is changed since the last time that we did this.
All right. And do you know which version I'm looking for here? Because I'll just make sure
No,
that
I do
we've got the
not.
latest one.
It's like the latest one. Yeah, they do minor releases, fairly often.
Okay.
So God knows what we're on now. I don't know, but yeah. Sometimes we roll stuff out, you know, weekly, bi-weekly. It just depends. So
Cool, cool, cool. Um, okay, so let's see here. We can just watch npm install. So the Gatsby team is out in New York this week, and so we are working in a kind of like an event space. And I'm kind of out of sorts here because I'm not at my usual home setup where I've got like the extra monitor and everything, or like my fiber internet connection. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that everything goes the way that we want it to. But we are seeing that the npm install is a little slower than usual. So let's see. I've got Amplify now. Let's just see if the standard like version command works. Oh, it doesn't like that. Oh, it does. Okay. Does 1.6.8 sound close enough?
that sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So then I'm going to go amplify configure.
I, yeah. Okay, yeah, go ahead and do that. But I think if you configured it before, you don't have to configure it again. But I guess this might be good for people new to this workshop or to this
Yeah.
this flow.
Um, okay. So let me pull up somewhere in here. I've got my, let's get that off screen. Um,
You mean you
AWS.
don't remember all of your passwords?
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have this one. I think this is the right one. Uh-oh. Come on, internet connection. I think that's it also. I don't know. Let's see how this goes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So basically, when you run Amplify Configure, it just opens your console to make sure you're signed in, and then you can kind of jump back to the CLI. So now that you've signed in, you can go back and just hit enter.
Oh, cool. All right. And then I think I want US, is US West 2, is that Portland? Or US West 2?
Yeah, either US West 2 or yeah, that's actually the only US West region we got.
Cool. And then do, let's see, new IAM user. Let's do Amplify GOT API.
And this is going to walk you through a bunch of about 3 or 4 steps. You can just click next and next and next because we kind of set all of that for you. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You can just take all the defaults that we give you.
Okay. And like, is there anything of note in here, like something that on a different type of project I would want to change, or is it this is like if you're using Amplify, you should always accept the permissions that Amplify sets for you?
Yeah, we're kind of setting the permissions. What's actually happening in that first screen where we're giving this user programmatic access, which basically means they can access your AWS credentials, your AWS account from a SDK or CLI, but they can't actually log in to the console using that user.
Got
Then the
it.
next, so that's programmatic, and then the next set, we're giving them admin access because the Amplify CLI has like over 20 or so different services it interacts with. So it basically needs to access pretty much everything. So the admin just gives them that. You could go through and like choose each individual service one at a time, but as the CLI evolves and we add new services, you would be kind of missing out on some other features. So
Gotcha.
admin is actually pretty normal.
Cool.
And tags, this isn't anything that we're going to use, so we can just kind of like skip that.
In like for clarity, is this like if I was working on a large team and say my team was the dashboard team, I would just tag this with like team dashboard so that I could find all of the apps my team was working on? Is it like organizational?
Yeah, it's kind of yeah. You can do that for organizational purposes. Also, if you want to kind of like track different apps that are being built with this user, the tags would also be useful there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we won't use those here.
Yeah,
All
you wouldn't
right.
need those, and you don't really need those for most apps. And
Okay.
then click create user, and then you'll be given the access key ID and the secret access key.
Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna, do I need these or?
Yeah, yeah. So this is what you're going to need for the command line. So you can just copy that access key ID.
Okay, got it. Going over to the access key ID. All right, I'm gonna pull this off. Let's see, how do I do this? I'm gonna move over to, just bear with me for a second while I
Yeah.
hide this laptop window. So just pretend like things are happening. Got that. I'm gonna hide it again. Enter it in here. Okay, and now I'm gonna turn this window back on. So now everybody can see. Okay. Do I need to change the profile name or anything?
It's up to you. I usually like to kind of mirror the username that we gave for the actual user in the AWS account here. So just I would copy that.
Okay, Amplify GOT API. All
Okay,
right,
cool.
and
So you set up the user. You only have to do that once, like ever. Like this isn't something you'll have to do again unless you want to create like a new set of permissions or whatever.
okay,
So we can create like multiple apps for with this one user. So I guess the next thing we might want to do is create the Gatsby site.
just right in this folder.
Yeah, but just anywhere. Yeah. So right now, do it in whatever folder you're ready to start working in.
Cool. I created a folder called Amplify for this, so we'll just, are we going to create like an API site as well?
So all of the API, all of the backend stuff goes directly in your root directory of whatever app you're working with.
So like
So
it'll live in the Gatsby site too.
yeah, yeah. So like
Okay.
if you were in a React app, it would be in the React folder, the main root of that, and then the same with Gatsby. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I'll just create one here. We're gonna put the site right into the core, or like the root Amplify directory, and this is going to install just our default starter. So kind of some basic layout, like a header, layout component, et cetera, et cetera. And that'll give us, some styling and stuff. So we're not starting from absolute scratch. Hopefully this internet connection keeps up. I'm seeing in the chat that we've got a little bit of lag, which is never a good time. Hopefully that doesn't get any worse. Let me see if I can see the Yeah, the bit rate looks okay, so I'm let's keep our fingers crossed here. Oh shit, what failed? All right, something blew up. Let's figure out why. That seems like an odd error to get. Let's see, what node version am I using? That seems right. So let's do um if I just do a yarn install, is that gonna? And if this doesn't work, I'm just gonna bail and use the, yeah, all right. So let's just do this. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm going to remove this folder, and then I'm gonna create it again. And we're gonna use the Hello World starter. So we'll do Gatsby JS, Gatsby starter Hello World, and this just comes down with only the bare things that we need. So this is not going to be a beautiful app, but it will take us less time to install because I don't have to wait for the don't have to wait for Sharp and everything to install. I don't have to troubleshoot that libvips error, which I'm not going to try to do live.
So is this like that purple starter that we're getting now?
Well,
The purple.
no, this one is actually like it's just going to say hello world on the screen. It's like an empty file.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
if I look at, let's see here, all we have is just like a bare component that exports hello world. And there's really nothing else in
Nice.
here. There's like a favicon and that's all. The base setup, all we've installed thus far is Gatsby React and React DOM. So we've got pretty much carte blanche here. We can do whatever we want.
Perfect. So I guess now that we have our Gatsby site, we'll initialize a new Amplify project within the root of that. So like yeah, so within that folder, we'll just run Amplify init.
Okay.
This will kind of walk us through a couple of steps to initialize our base project.
Um,
So there we go. Yeah, Game of Thrones.
okay.
So with the environment, you can basically create, this is going to be our main environment. You can create other environments down the road that will basically allow you to kind of do feature like iterations. So if you don't want to affect your main environment, you basically can clone your environment into another environment, make changes, then merge them back in. So this doesn't really matter that much since we're not going to be doing that. So just give it the environment name of whatever you like dev, local, main,
Yeah,
whatever.
let's call it dev. That seems right. I'm going to use VS Code, so we will choose that. It's a JavaScript project. Did I do a thing? Okay. It's a React. Do you have a Gatsby selector? Nope, React.
Oh, React. Gatsby might be something we need to add there. It's a good idea.
Source directory path. So in a Gatsby project, we look in source, but we also have like the Gatsby node and everything in root. Does that matter?
No, I would probably put source. This is just going to drop an AWS dash exports file, which is kind of like keeps up with our dependencies for Amplify in particular. So source is
Ah,
fine.
okay, I got you. This is going to be public because Gatsby builds to public.
There we go. Glad you caught that one.
The build command is yarn build. We'll call this yarn, or actually, hold on. So this is saying, is this like if I want it to run? Like, is this to like serve the site? Because you know the
Yeah, yeah. Basically, the build command, yeah, is going to be what builds into that folder with I guess public or whatever.
mhm.
Um, but start, yeah, would be like if you had like a start command. So it'd be like what or Gatsby develop or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason I ask is like Gatsby compiles down to static assets, which means that there really isn't a start command for production. This is more,
Oh,
so
okay,
is this
gotcha,
for like,
gotcha.
this is for development then, is the start command?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do I want to use an AWS profile? Do you know what that means?
Yes, you do. Yeah, this is going to be the profile you just created a
Oh,
moment
I
ago.
got you. So I'll just do yes. I'm going to use the Game of Thrones API.
Cool. We're good to go. So this is going to kind of create that that basic boilerplate Amplify like starter. So this kind of like gives you your base Amplify project, so we can start adding our features like our API and our authentication and all that stuff.
Okay, cool. Um, do I do that from like, is there a file in here that I'm looking for, or where do I?
Yeah. So after this is created, you'll have an Amplify folder at the root of your at the root of your directory. So there you go. It just showed up. And then the AWS exports file is going to be the other thing that's generated by the CLI.
Okay, so I see this. Cool. So that doesn't do much now, I assume, because we haven't set anything up.
Yeah,
Um,
right. So that'll start being populated with our GraphQL URL and our API key and stuff like that.
okay. And then are these things that are supposed to be human readable, or is this kind of like artifacts of other things?
Yeah. So the two main folders that you'll be interested in that Amplify folder are going to be current cloud backend and backend. So the current cloud backend is the currently synced backend that you have deployed to your account. So you wouldn't really edit the current cloud backend folder. It's
Hmm.
kind of just a representation of what's currently deployed. And then the
Okay.
backend is what we'll end up writing a little bit of code in. So for instance, when we create our GraphQL API, our base schema.graphql file will be generated there by the CLI. And
Oh,
if we ever
gotcha.
want to evolve our schema, we can go in that backend folder, make changes, and then push those changes back into our account.
Nice. And then a question came up in the chat, which is actually a question I have as well. Um, is Amplify like similar to Firebase? Like, what's the scope of Amplify?
Yeah, so a lot of people compare the two, and they have a lot of similarities and they have some differences. So the scope of Amplify is it kind of like gives you that suite of services, kind of like how Firebase does.
Hmm.
One of the main differences is that with Amplify, our data source choice is AppSync, and AppSync is kind of like a managed GraphQL service, but
Okay.
you're not tied to any data source in particular. So with AppSync, you can use SQL, NoSQL. You can use um, actually Lambda functions as a data source. You can use
Mm.
HTTP endpoints as a data source, so you can kind of like bring in your REST API. Um, so pretty much you're more flexible on the data source side, and you're also
Okay.
using GraphQL, whereas with Firebase you're not.
Okay. Cool. 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 So, all right. So I think this is still this feels a little mysterious to me, but I feel like it's going to get clear as we do things.
Yeah, so
So,
most of the stuff in that folder, like so the basic things that are created in that folder are things you're not going to be actually worrying about. A lot of the stuff is handled
okay.
for you by the CLI. So
Okay.
we'll never edit that amplify meta.json. You don't even have to know what any of that stuff is.
Okay.
The only things that are going to be created down the road will be like when we create our GraphQL API, we'll have like a new API folder, and then in there we'll have like stuff that we're used to working with, like schema and stuff like that.
Okay. Um, actually, that maybe that's like a great thing to do now is start setting up this GraphQL API.
Yeah, let's do it.
Also, I've noticed that since the last time we hung out, you've like lost your Mississippi pronunciation of API.
Yeah, I've actually made an effort not to say it API, but like
I
I
was,
have people that like leave me negative reviews and shit.
wait, for
So like
really?
go to like yeah, so if you go to like Egghead, well, I don't know if this is visible from people that aren't on Egghead, but we have like an Egghead review channel for people that like make Egghead videos,
Yeah.
and like you hang out in there, you'll just see reviews pop up, and someone rated my course like I have like an average that's pretty good, 4.5 stars or whatever. Or anyway, someone gave me like 1 star, and the only feedback they have was like I don't know how to pronounce API. And then like I've had a couple other people comment on my YouTube videos and shit. So I'm just like
That's
uh,
I
evolve my accent.
I will say I find your Southern charm to be absolutely endearing. Like I love the API. I can't. But okay. So anyways, you're making jokes about your accent aside. Let's maybe build an app.
All right, all right.
Okay, cool. So how do we start? Like, do we start with a schema file? Do I have to go to the console?
So yeah, let's go back to the command line, and it's kind of like Rails, where you're like generate controller or whatever. We're going to be like amplify add API. So just
Amplify,
type
add.
those words in.
Oh, and this is cool too because it's basically like this is a nice touch. Just adding some like really simple instructions there. So, all right,
Yeah.
we're gonna add an API. I'm hitting enter. It's gonna be a GraphQL
So
API.
yep.
We want it to be the Game of Thrones API, so I'll just let the default sit. What? Oh, I have to
So it
type it.
looks like we need to just leave off the dash.
Oh, Game of Thrones API.
So for the authorization type, we're just going to choose API key. So that way we can just pass the API key in the header.
Okay.
And if we had a GraphQL schema already, we could just kind of reference it here, but we don't, which is fine. And I think it's better to do this flow. Just choose no.
Okay.
And it's going to guide us if we choose yes here.
Okay.
So I would choose yes. And then this is going to kind of present us with two basic boilerplates. Let's choose a single object with fields, which is basically just a single type with a
Okay.
couple of fields on it.
Alrighty, let's. And I think I probably do want to edit the schema now, right?
Right, right.
Oh, it's being more helpful than I wanted it to be. So let me close this one, and we want to find it up in the schema.
Right. So API schema.graphql.
Got it. Cool. Okay, so
So
so just to recap what just happened, we ran through a CLI tool that basically created this folder for us and set up a fairly bare bones kind of setup, right? So this then is kind of like if I had gone in and just created these files manually, Amplify would pick those up as well, right?
yeah, you could have started with the schema, and then we kind of like introspect your schema and like build out the rest of that API.
Gotcha.
But we're going to be now giving it a schema because this is kind of like a boilerplate for people that are kind of getting new. But we kind of know how to write probably our schema. But for people getting started, we offer them a few different base types.
Okay.
So I'm thinking for like the Game of Thrones API, we want to like be able to like have a list of like all of the characters that are there. So
Okay.
I'm thinking a type of character might make a lot of sense here.
Okay.
And then for the info, we might want to have a name, a description, and an avatar. So we can kind of like keep all of that stuff and then just add an avatar, which is going to be a string. And
Okay.
then, yeah, I think that schema looks pretty good. So the only thing that's different that you might not be used to from a typical GraphQL API, yeah, is that right there. So we have these directives, and we have about 6 different directives now that kind of will build out additional functionality for a GraphQL API. So with @model, @model is a special directive that will build out all of the additional CRUD and list operation definitions in your schema. So
Mm,
typically, when you have a schema, you want to do create, update, read, uh, delete, list, all of that stuff. So we kind of build out all of those definitions for you. We also create a Dynamo DB, which is a NoSQL database for you. And
oh,
then we
nice.
build all of the resolvers that kind of go along with those operations that tie to the data source.
Cool. Very cool. So do we like? Am
So
I? Are we good here?
yeah, we save that and we just
Dig it.
run amplify push.
Okay. So I have edited the file. I'm hitting enter to continue, and it did some stuff. Now, does that mean so? Let's see. Is it done? Looks like it's not quite finished yet. Or
Should it should prompt you back to your command line prompt unless there's an issue with maybe Control C or something.
okay, I have Control C.
Yeah, there was some issue right there with the command line.
All right,
So
so it
yeah,
did
so
that
now you
thing.
can just do amplify push.
Oh, this is cool though. Okay, so upon doing that, we just like generated out a bunch of stuff, and so there still aren't any resolvers, but there's some resolvers in here now. This is
Right. These
all
are the
right. So that's not
resolvers
very
that were
readable, but
generated for you by us. Yeah, and these are kind of, if you wanted to edit your resolvers, you could. But the resolvers actually map right now directly to the schema that we're going to be creating for you.
oh, okay. And here's
Which is basically
get out of here.
that's kind of the expanded schema there.
Cool. Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, it's like it took this character and just threw all the things that we would need to like, here's like how to do some filtering.
Yeah,
Um,
searching, filtering, queries, mutations, subscriptions,
nice. Yeah. Okay. So now we have
endpoints.
two queries to get characters or list characters. Um, what else is in here? We've got mutations, create, update, delete characters. This is slick, man. Oh shit, you can do subscriptions?
Subscriptions are already kind of baked in. They not kind of, they are baked in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's really slick. All right, so let's get this thing up and start playing with it. So I'm gonna write amplify push. Okay.
So this should prompt you to ask if you'd like to continue, and we do. And then it's gonna now go ahead and compile everything and kind of start the deployment. But what's gonna happen next is that it should give us the option of generating our GraphQL code locally for us. So this is kind of the step here where we're gonna do some GraphQL code gen optionally. So if we do want the GraphQL code gen, which I think we do, we can just choose yes.
Okay.
Let's
JavaScript.
do, yeah, whatever you want. I'm guessing JavaScript.
Yeah, just because watching me try to hack my way through TypeScript is probably not the best use of our time. Pattern of GraphQL queries, mutations, and descriptions. We're gonna put that under source GraphQL. Yep, that makes sense. Generate, update all possible GraphQL operations. I think, yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah. Maximum statement depth. And so actually maybe this is a good point to just think about. Like in a Gatsby site, reasonably speaking, like in a lot of cases, you're only going to want queries because we just read those at build time. And so there's not a huge amount of benefit to having the mutations and subscriptions. Where this would make a big difference is if you were going to build a dynamic app on top of Gatsby, then having those mutations and subscriptions means that you would be able to do some async requests using like Apollo or whatever to send things back up to the API, which would then you could trigger rebuilds with it and stuff. Um,
Right, right. That makes sense.
so maximum statement depth. Do I need to care about this?
You can just kind of leave that as is.
Okay.
So
And
just we'll go ahead and build out just two levels deep into your operations.
and can you kind of clarify what that means? So like if I or maybe I'll try to talk through it and you can tell me if I got this right. So if we had, let's say, a on the characters a field for relatives, and I were to say like give me like Tyrion, and then under relatives, I like had each of the relatives asked for relatives. You would cut that off at like the second recursion.
Right. That's
Okay,
exactly right.
I
Yeah.
got you.
Okay, cool. So this is going to go ahead and deploy, the entire backend. So it's deploying what it's doing is it's deploying the AppSync API in the database. So this usually takes around 60 seconds or so.
Okay,
So what I'm thinking we can do is I know we're going to need a plugin called Gatsby Source GraphQL. Maybe we can go ahead and start doing that part, unless you want to kind of talk about anything else happening right now.
no, I think it's probably a good idea to try to do this stuff in tandem since it's taken a little longer. So let's add Gatsby source GraphQL. I don't think we're gonna need anything else. We'll just kind of do some really like hacky inline CSS stuff today instead of trying to make anything really beautiful. Um, Let me close up this Amplify folder so that we can see what's going on in here. So,
So let's look at, yeah, the AWS exports file, I think, is what we'll look at next.
okay,
So this file, once our backend is deployed, it's going to now have our GraphQL endpoint and our API key. I think those are the two things we're going to need to get Gatsby source GraphQL up and running.
and so the way that this finishes is by updating this exports file.
Yeah, so it basically what's happening is it's kind of like interacting with your AWS account using that user, and it's creating all of these things. So it creates the API, it creates or it deploys that schema into your API, then it deploys all of those resolvers,
Hmm.
and then it creates the data source, and then it's done. And then once that's done, it'll bring down the URL and the API key for the new API.
Okay, cool. Very cool. So let's see. Yeah, I think. All right. Oh, hey, we got stuff. All right. And now that we have this, we have the GraphQL endpoint. Great. The region. We've got an API key. Now, this is like or no, this is the API key. I get it. So I don't really need this. I'll just import the AWS stuff whenever I need to reference one of these.
Yeah, I guess you could do that because in that Gatsby dash config.js, we could import that and then just reference that in the URL and the API key. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
let's
right.
do that. So we've got Gatsby source GraphQL. So I'm going to create a Gatsby config.js, and then we need to export an object. That object has a plugins key. And let's see, while I'm setting this up, someone has a question regarding AppSync. So what is the best way to get AppSync, which is and then in parentheses, GraphQL schema generated from existing Dynamo DB. So what's the best way to get AppSync subscriptions working when you update create items in Dynamo DB with the AWS SDK?
So you want to basically create an update in your DynamoDB table away from AppSync, and then have that trigger a subscription. I believe that's the question.
That's how I interpret it. Yeah. Oops.
Okay. Yeah. So when you think about DynamoDB, it's just a database, right? It's like nothing to do with AppSync if you have it kind of if you think about it on its own. So what you can do is DynamoDB has these things that are called triggers. So it's basically event based, similar to what a subscription is. How subscriptions also event based. So you can send the DynamoDB trigger to then a Lambda function. So you create a basically a separate Lambda function, and you have a trigger that will hit that Lambda function every time an item is created in DynamoDB. So that would be one way to do it. And then in that Lambda function, you could then call the GraphQL API with a mutation on a none data source. So we've kind of thought this through. We've actually built out a flow just for this. We have something called a none data source that will literally allow you to kind of trigger subscriptions without any other changes in the database table. So you have the DynamoDB trigger that happens when an operation happens, hits the Lambda function. The Lambda function then calls AppSync with the none data source, which will trigger their subscription. So
Okay.
that's kind of how you would do that. So I would say that's kind of an advanced level topic, but it's pretty easy to kind of like get up and running.
Awesome. So now I have part of this set up where I've got the URL set up to point to the endpoint, but I'm guessing I need to do something with that API key. So do I need to set up like an authorization header, or is there something else?
Yeah, so we'll do a headers object just like that. And instead of authorization, the key that needs to be sent is called x-API-key. So a lowercase x, all this is lowercase actually. Yeah, X API key, and then the API key.
API key. Okay, so that gives me, do I need anything else?
That is it. You should be good to go.
All right, so with that being done, what I should be able to do is let's give this a shot. Let's run yarn develop. And I have a problem. What is my problem? My problem is that I used mixed imports. So I'm going to do const equals, and then we will require that instead. So that's just me trying to use ES6 when I should have been using CommonJS. Let's run this one more time. And now I've got another problem, which is, crap. Okay, so the challenge that we have here is that because the AWS Amplify stuff is written in ES6. That means that I need to not import it the way that we were. So I'm just not going to do that. Let's.
Well, if you want to set the just the API key and the URL in a separate file and do a default or whatever, however you want to export it, that's one way to do it. But if not, it's up
I
to you.
mean, for the sake of not like getting too lost in the weeds here, let's just grab them out.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's
I
probably a
want
good
to.
idea. We'll just hard code it.
Yeah. Ideally, this would be set up as like a. This would be set up as some kind of other export, so that you're as a actual environment variable, so that you were able to like protect that stuff.
Right, right.
In the meantime, we're just gonna kind of cowboy code this. So let's run that. And to anybody watching who just took a screenshot of that API key, please don't be a jerk. We just want to learn things here.
It'll be
So
deleted anyway very soon.
yeah, we'll rotate that out. But for the remainder of this live stream, it would be great if people weren't messing with the code that we're writing. So please don't do that. So all right, now I've deleted that import, and we are going to run.
Oh, success.
All right, so I've now officially unmixed my CommonJS and ES6. So if I go into the localhost 8000, I'm gonna jump in here, and what we should see is I should have access to a Game of Thrones type, which I do. And then inside of it, we should start seeing the queries that are available to us. So I'm going to do like a get character, or I'm going to do a list.
Well, I think we need to create some characters, don't we?
We totally do, but what I wanted to show is that all of the things are in here.
Oh, okay, got you.
So like we're picking up all of the stuff. However, when we run it, it's just going to come back empty because we haven't added anything yet. So I guess that does make sense as like the next thing we should do. Let's go add some.
But it's cool that you got it, it's working. So we know it's there. We just need to populate the database.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I guess the easiest way to open the AppSync console for the GraphQL API would be to open the terminal, and we can actually run this Amplify console API command. So Amplify console API.
Is it 2 words like that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. GraphQL.
And this should open right up exactly where we want to be. And we can start creating some mutations there. So
All right.
let me give you some data to kind of work with, I guess.
Sure.
So let's see here. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna grab one thing. I'm gonna go ahead and sign into my account and pull the avatars, because I think the name and the description. Actually, I can just paste some of that stuff for you in somewhere for you to use.
Yeah, there's the Zoom chat, or yeah, you can probably the Zoom chat is easiest.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So Kurt Kemple, who is also on the AWS team, is apparently watching this stream while getting tattooed, which is pretty wonderful.
That's awesome. We need a live stream of the tattoo happening.
I know, just like picture in picture of Kurt making his like I'm in pain face.
All right, cool. So I have the data here, so I'm going to start pasting some stuff in. So what we need to do, I guess, to create these. Okay, you're already in the right place. So you're on the queries. So let me see if I can find the chat. So let me share it for you in our private chat. So I'm just going to give you avatar and description and name for like maybe 3 characters or something.
Okay.
And we'll populate the database with just these 3 for now.
All right, so I'm going to run a mutation. I'm going to create character. And now do I do this as like a single character at a time?
Yeah, you would probably just do this one at a time for now. There's also a way to do a batch operation, but we don't have the resolver set up yet, so this would probably be the best way.
And avatar is the other one, and that's the one that I already copied. So let's drop that in here, and then I will put in this. Oh boy, this is going to get, oh no, this is going to be fine. So I'm going to take this without the quotes, drop this in here, and then we've got here. Okay, and then what's the return type from this?
So this will return, all that stuff. So whatever, doesn't really matter. That's cool. Just the name is fine.
Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna grab one more. Let's do just a straight replacement. Then here. And one more. All right. Data entry is always the most exciting part of any live stream. So then we're going to do one last one. So we'll get 3 in here, and that'll be good. So let's drop this. Get this. And here. Drop this one in. Okay. And all right, so now we should have 3, which means that if I come back in here and run this again, it failed. And it failed because I shut off the server. So let me start again. And do we want to, is there anything else that we need to put in there, or we're just going to roll with that, right?
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Cool. Yeah, let's see. And while we were waiting for things to boot up, I asked if people were using Amplify, and it looks like we've got a handful of people in here, like people who are just starting out. A couple, as we know from the question from Timmy, that there was he's already using it and trying to do like subscription stuff, which was super cool. And then let's see, what else?
And then we have some info about Curtis's tattoo.
Oh yeah.
Sounds tight, liking that.
Awesome. All right, so let's try this one more time. Boom. All right, we've got data. So we now have like data, which is great because what that means is I can come in here and on our home page. So let me just like close this out for a minute. Going to close up that folder and let's jump into some Gatsby stuff. I can just do a like I guess we can just do it this way. We'll do like a page query. So I'm going to call this one query, and it's going to use the GraphQL import from Gatsby, and I'll just drop in this thing here.
And we also have the definitions in that GraphQL folder. Just if for anyone watching, if you wanted to know where that definition came from.
Can you clarify what you mean by that?
So we have that GraphQL folder that's been generated locally. Yeah. So in there you have all of the definitions for all the different operations. So you could import that and use it. Yeah. But actually, since we already have it written there, we don't have to worry about any of the filters or any of that stuff that's in there since we're not using it. So
yeah.
I think the way we have it is fine.
And so one potential challenge with this is like, if you use this, I think we need to define those variables. Which means that
so you could actually since they're optional, like you could just hit the list characters without any arguments.
Right, sorry, let me rephrase. If we exported this from, if we exported this as like the Gatsby query, we would have to either edit this or go in and define these variables to make sure that they worked. Because by default these wouldn't be defined, which means that
Oh,
it
I
would
see
throw an
what you're
error.
saying. Okay, okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Um, but
That's good to
yeah,
know.
so yeah, I'm pretty sure that would fail. So let's just take this. So what'll happen is as we run this query, the result of this query will get injected into this component as a prop called data. And inside of that, we can do something like, let's say we will take this div, and instead of putting out a little greeting, we can do like a list of the characters. So let's take data.got. What else do we got in here? List characters
Dot items.
dot items, and then we can map that, and we'll take character. And inside of here, we're going to output. We'll just do a little div. We'll give it a key. I'm also going to get the ID of these characters so that I have a thing to put in here. So I'm going to use the character.id. And then inside, let's see, it doesn't like something that I'm doing. What does it not like? Is it good? Good.
Oh, it's good.
All right. And so then I can do like an image tag, and we'll set the source to be the character.avatar. Is that the right thing? Dot avatar, good. We'll set the alt to be their name, because we always want to provide an alt tag. Okay, then we can put in, let's say, their name, character.name, and then we'll put in their description. All right, and upon doing that, we have, in pretty short order here, I believe, let's pull up localhost 8000, and we've got, there we go. So we have our characters loading from the Amplify GraphQL API that we just built, and we're showing, images and stuff like, so this is, it's not beautiful, but it's definitely working. Um,
Hey, I want to go back to some of that code you just wrote.
sure.
In the past, the way I've done the querying for static stuff from Gatsby was using use static query, but this looks much nicer. Can you kind of talk about like how that works?
Yeah, so basically in Gatsby we have two ways to query data. And if you're using a page component, then you can export a query from it. The requirement for this is that it has to be used as part of page generation, because we have special treatment for those files. Another way that we could do this is we could take this whole query and put it down in here as a result of use static query. Use static query is a React hook that allows you to pull in that data in a kind of like a nice, Reacty way, so that you get so it's a little more explicit where things are coming from.
Hmm.
So actually, maybe it's worth it to just kind of show this. Let me create a folder. I'm going to create one called hooks, and we'll say like use GOT character, and I can import GraphQL and use static query from Gatsby. And then I can create something called use GOT character, and that's going to be a function, and that's going to, let's do const data equals use static query and then GraphQL. And then I can take the same query that I just wrote and pull it out. We'll drop it in here. And then where this is kind of a nice convenience method is I can do something like this. I'm going to return data.got.list characters.items. And then in here, what I could do instead is, like, if I drop this out, then I can do import use GOT characters from hooks use GOT character. Oh, I got the name wrong. That should be plural characters, but we'll, and then I can also drop this out. And down in here, we would be able to just do something like this. So I would do like const characters equals use GOT characters, and then I could do this, right? So it kind of depends on like, are you going to reuse this in multiple places? It also has, like, just to show that that does what we want, use GOT characters. Oh, I screwed this up because I didn't get into GOT, data, GOT. Where did I screw up? Oh, I didn't export it, is why. Export default use GOT character. Okay, so then coming back out here, there we go. So this is kind of like, if we were going to use this in a bunch of places, then it makes a lot of sense to do this because it really cleans up the component. Because instead of having the query, which the query kind of ends up getting magically inserted into the props, which is like the way that Gatsby handles. The way that that works under the hood is that we like parse the pages, look, like break down the AST, look for queries, execute the queries, and then inject the result of the queries as the data prop, which makes perfect sense if you understand how Gatsby works under the hood. But if you don't, then it can be really, it feels magical, right? Um, and so this is a little more explicit. We're saying, I want you to execute this query and return the data from it. And then inside of my component, I'm going to use the result of that query and do stuff with it. The shortcoming of this is that you can't use variables with static queries, which is why they're called static. So this only works if you're doing like a listing or something like that, where you can hard code all the values. We couldn't do this to, say, create a page dynamically or something.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because I didn't know that both of them existed. But the first way definitely looks easier.
Yeah, this
So,
this is this is definitely like an abstraction, right? If we were going to use this in two places on the site, then it would make sense.
okay, got you.
Yeah, the way that we've done it here is kind of like a little bit of premature abstraction because we've now, instead of co-locating the query with the component that uses it, we have like added this kind of abstraction layer. So let me just roll that back so that we can see. We'll just keep it with a kind of simplified approach.
And I think like a really big distinction for me when I first learned Gatsby was the difference between how I typically was fetching GraphQL data versus the options that you have now with Gatsby. So you can still fetch data with GraphQL dynamically. So you could have like that componented mount lifecycle or maybe that use effect hook when
Hmm.
the app loads and then query it. But what we've
Hmm.
done here is we've actually queried the data at build time, right?
Yeah, so this would be done at build time, which is really nice because it means that, like, once we've built the site, we don't need to keep a solution for like accessing the database available. We're able to just straight up build it once, not have a reference to the database at all, which is good for security. It's good for performance because we don't have to make asynchronous queries when somebody loads the page. That data is already there. And if somebody were to hack the site, there is no database or server to get access to. They can just deface the static assets that are there. So it's also kind of nice from that standpoint as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So okay, so we've built like a simple page. I think you had mentioned before we started you had like one other plan.
Yeah, so like what I would like to get into is authentication and deployment, but I think that might take a little time. I would say if you're interested in the authentication piece, Kurt, who is on this chat today, getting his tattoo done, wrote a really nice post about using Amplify with Gatsby, using in the Jamstack, building a Jamstack app, and it goes through authentication. But I think what we can do is actually show how to deploy this app in the Amplify console pretty quickly.
Okay.
So do you
So,
want to check
but
how
yeah,
to do that? Do
bef-
that, and that might take about 5 minutes.
yeah, that would be great. And if you don't mind dropping a link to that article into the Twitch chat, that would be huge. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
and then Kurt, I know you're watching. I fully expect you to come on this stream and teach us how to do authentication.
Okay, so I need to drop this in. Okay, I dropped this in the wrong chat. Let me
Eh,
go back to the Twitch chat.
okay, yeah, yeah. If you want to drop it in there, that'd be great. Um, so yeah, let's
Okay, yeah.
whoa, what
I'm,
just
gue- I'm
happened?
guessing I'm guessing that we need to now let's go to the AWS dashboard, and we're going to use the console, which is kind of its own thing in the AWS dashboard.
Looks okay, so yeah, I need to drop my moderation settings because it looks like it just attacked everybody who tried to post the link to that article. So I have posted it because apparently I have superpowers. Sorry about that, Kurt. Um, yeah, so let's do what you just said was to deploy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and so how would one go about that?
So let's go to our web browser and just open up the AWS dashboard.
Okay, so is this this good
Yeah,
enough or
yeah. And we're going to go to services drop down and look for Amplify, and we can just type it in there. Yeah.
got it?
And then from here, we're going to click uh, the deploy button. And then from there, we're going to need to now have our application available in GitHub.
Okay.
So we need to deploy this to GitHub. But before we do that, I think what we need to do is let's go in our Amplify folder /.config. And I want to make sure that we have one of the settings there properly set up,
.config.
and the project config.json. So we have for the build command yarn build, but I'm not positive that Amplify console supports yarn. It could, but I don't want to like fail for this demo. So I would say npm run script build, yeah, just to be sure.
Okay.
And I think we should be good to go there.
Okay.
So after we've done that, let's go ahead and push this up to some random GitHub repo so we can connect it.
All right. So I have GitHub's hub tool installed. So I'm going to do let's do a git init. I'm going to git create. All right. So that's created a new thing for me, and then I'm going to do git add all, git commit. Getting ready to deploy. I'm definitely about to commit API keys to a Git repo, which is
Sweet.
bad news bears. So let me origin master.
After this, I'm going to show you how to delete this
Yeah,
project. So
let's definitely or at least how to reset that API key. Okay, so
yeah.
I've now set that up. I'm going to choose GitHub then, and it's going to ask for access to all my stuff. Cool. Let's see. I've got a thing over here. And let's go to GitHub. And okay, GitHub authorization was successful. All right, and so let's type in Amplify. There it is. I'm going to deploy the master branch because that's the only one there is. Did I hit that button? I did.
So let's choose an existing environment from that drop-down menu and just choose dev.
Okay.
And now we can click create new role because we don't have a role right now.
Okay.
And this is going to give us a role for deploying for Amplify pretty much. So it's already set everything up just like the other way. You should be able to just click next
Okay.
because we're giving Amplify permission. And
Admin
once you,
access.
yeah, next.
Don't need any tags.
Yeah, all, yeah. So if you want to change the role name, yeah.
Okay. All
All right.
right.
So now we should be able to go back to the console.
That's where I was.
Yeah, and then click refresh. Yeah, existing roles,
Okay.
and that should be it. should be able to go ahead and just scroll down to,
Well,
yeah, so,
it detected yarn, it looks like, because that doesn't, or unless it
oh,
didn't.
interesting.
Yeah.
I would keep it as is and just see what happens. It might fail. If it does, then we'll just like,
Okay.
you know,
And so
yeah,
what should have
refer people
happened
to the
here?
documentation.
So what we should have done here is added the API key should be set here,
Yeah, you could
because
do
that
that
way it
there.
wouldn't be in the
Exactly.
code.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
since we're gonna like tear this down in a second, I'm not gonna do that.
Right. Right. Right.
Okay, so I'm clicking. I've hit save and deploy. Things are happening.
So we're
Um,
gonna see if this works. One thing I'm not too sure about is depending on how like we just did this, you may need to have the AWS exports file available to be readable, or it can actually deploy a new backend for you, or you can set the variables in that AWS exports file and read them from there. But but we'll see what happens.
mhm.
But we might get a failure on the front end on the build, but um, we'll just see what happens. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't done this exact flow that we're kind of doing here in a while, so.
Yeah. So a question came in about let's see. Yeah. So a question came in about how we would trigger a rebuild for Amplify whenever the database changes. So like if we created a fourth character, how would we set up to have like Amplify trigger a rebuild?
Yeah, so we just added Amplify triggers last week for doing that type of stuff. Let me see if I can find a link to the blog post. So, like, if you want to trigger a new build off of a database change, that's kind of what you're asking about. So, let me give a link to that post. I haven't actually done it yet, but I know they just added the feature last week,
Okay.
which is a good question because it was actually one of the things. So we have webhooks. Yeah, so webhooks. I'll go ahead and drop this in the chat. And if you're interested in looking at it, learning more about it.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah. You're gonna
Let
have
me
to.
give a link.
I need to figure out how to fix that. Let me grab it out of the Zoom chat and drop it in here. All right, so there's that. We are currently building, and yeah, let's just actually take a look at this while we're waiting for it to build. So if we want, so effectively what we would be doing here is we would want AppSync to trigger this build.
Um, so in the sense of AppSync, I haven't done it with AppSync, but the way that that would work with webhooks, I'm guessing, would be that you would have, again, a Dynamo DB trigger, hit a Lambda function, and then trigger the webhook. So
Okay.
that's kind of the flow that I would think if you're using Dynamo DB, which would be what AppSync is using.
Okay.
So I
That
think
might be that might be a cool one to dig into more, just because it's like multi-step. Um, it'd be cool to have some kind of a tutorial to just step through how to do that, because like I academically understand what you're saying, but I'm definitely like
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
some mental
totally, totally. I
somersaults
mean,
here.
I'm using like jargon that's AWS jargon. So what a DynamoDB trigger is, it's basically an event, just like you know, a image upload to a data, like some type of like data source like S3 or Contentful or one of these other places would be an event, and you can use that event to do things. So we would take that event, we would pipe the event into a Lambda function, which takes the event as an argument, and then from there we can then call the new build. But yeah, so even that might sound abstract, so I'm going to definitely put together a tutorial for that because it is a very useful thing.
And then Kurt in the chat just said something about pipeline resolvers, which is a phrase I have not heard in relation to AWS.
Yeah, so pipeline resolvers are basically a way to have a single resolver hit multiple data sources, and it's a GraphQL resolver. So you end up having some event happen, like a mutation or whatever, and you can basically pipe the result from different resolvers into each other and
Okay.
hit up like a bunch of different data sources. So you might hit an HTTP endpoint, a database table, a Lambda function, and then kind of like pipe the results into one another. So let's
Cool.
click on build though and see if we have any errors. I'm just kind of
Looks like
curious.
it looks like it did build without
Oh,
any.
sweet.
Yeah, it said it
We'll
did the
just
thing.
wait though.
Deployment finished. Okay,
Oh, sweet. Okay, good.
where do I
So no
here?
errors. So we should be given a URL somewhere in there. So let's
Is
click on the domain right there. See if our Game of Thrones app deployed right.
Oh snap. So yeah, this is, I mean, this is it's pretty cool. We've got our very super pretty app that we built together. But it's loading real stuff. It is up on the internet, and we did all of that, including a whole bunch of bullshitting, in just over an hour. So that's, I mean, that's pretty slick. Like that's really powerful because I know that my previous experience with AWS is it like took me an hour just to figure out what service I was supposed to be using. So being able to kind of
Dude,
stand that
you're in
up and
good luck. An hour is not bad. It took me an hour just to find out which fucking docs to read. Like I didn't get started even like doing anything.
Yeah, so this
Like,
is, I mean, this is really cool. I feel like this is a big step forward in terms of like the AWS experience in general. Um, so yeah, Kurt, definitely calling you out. I want you back on here to teach me about auth. Nader, I'd love to see
and
something on like the webhooks and stuff. That'd be great.
yeah, I want to do something there, and I was going to just mention one more thing about the console. Like if you do make a change locally and you push and you merge into master, or you just push the master from your branch, it will kick off a new build automatically.
So
So like
the
if
like
you were
code changes will trigger a build automatically.
right. You make a change to your code, you push it to Git, it will deploy that, and we use something called atomic deployments, which I think a lot of people are maybe or may not be familiar with that. But what that means is it will basically provision the new build, and it won't kind of deploy to the same endpoint. So the endpoint will be the same, but it's basically cached in another area.
Hmm.
So basically, once the deployment's done, people accessing it won't get a broken build while that deployment is happening. Will
I got
basically
you.
kind of like deploy, like they call it like Lambda at edge. I think is kind of what the terminology is in AWS. So
Okay, cool. I mean, that's, yeah, that's super slick. So, really nice pipeline. It feels very modern, which I think is like not, it's usually not how I would describe the experience of using AWS services. So really nice work on that to the Amplify team. Um, Anything else you wanna touch on before we wrap up? I feel like we've hit a pretty decent stopping point.
no, follow me on Twitter, Dabit3. Hit me up. Any questions? I'll be happy
Absolutely.
to help.
Yeah, let's pull up. Let's get on Dabit 3. Definitely go follow Nader. He's good people. Does a lot of good things around. He's always out somewhere speaking or teaching. So um, get caught
Dude,
up with him for
97
sure.
notifications.
Oh, this is the Gatsby account. I'm not that popular. Um,
That's the most I've never seen though, so that's still pretty.
yeah. The Gatsby account is regularly at like 99 plus. It's pretty fantastic. Um, but yeah, cool. So yeah, go follow Nader for sure. Go check out AWS. Like do this Amplify. Go check that out. Start playing with it. Get something deployed. And yeah, thank you so much. We've got a couple exciting things coming up. Let me pull up the Twitch calendar here. We've got a handful of events that I'm really excited about. So we are going to next week be talking to Bram Adams from Algolia. We're going to add a search to a Gatsby site so that you can search through your blogs and everything. We've also got coming up a little bit later. This one's not listed yet, but the week after, on the 23rd, Sean Wang is going to come on, and we are going to play with Netlify's Netlify's like functions. We're gonna do a whole bunch of cool stuff there. So yeah, definitely check that out. Like subscribe to these events, follow me on Twitch, and let's definitely catch up next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks everybody for coming.
Later.